Welcome back to another session of 6th grade art here. When we left off last time, we had almost completed the car, so we're to the point where we had finished up some of the more interesting details with the steering wheel, interior body lines, latches, parts of the suspension down here, one of the rims in the front. So during this session, I want to continue the rims, and then it's important that we clean all of this up. I'm going to, since I have red lines here, you should just have pencil lines, but I will have to scrub these out the best that I can. And then upon completion of cleaning up the car so it looks like a white car in front of a checkerboarded background, then we can go about decorating it and coloring it as well. So, although the car is pretty well complete, there's still much has to be done. So let's continue on over in here. We want our rims to match, and it doesn't matter to me. You're free to make the rims that you would like. This is simply one that's easy to draw and is also looks quite good. So I'm going to stick with it because I think it's an easy to draw and it looks good. So just like we did here, we're using the width of our hub right there to help us figure out how big our mag will be. And in this case, it looks like a rather large slice of pizza, most people say. So it looks to me like I need to move that line over a little bit. So I like to kind of, drawing short straight lines doesn't necessarily always require the use of the dotted line technique. But when you're drawing longer lines, and particularly straight long lines, it really can help. In the case of really kind of wavy longer lines, it really helps a lot. Helps you kind of see it before you have to commit to it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and continue this down here so we can kind of get these to be about the same shape. Same width. If we can make them symmetrical, then we'll be using some of our ideas from the previous lesson on the elements of art and the principles of design, what we just call the design lesson. However, if you use those elements of art and principles of design in everything that you make, then you will find that you make really high quality artwork over and over and over again. It will always have that sense that it was planned out. Alright, so from here we'll do the same thing again. And we want these to be about the same width if we can make that happen. That's that symmetry or that balance is very visually attractive to people. And I might go back with my ruler, and maybe not. Those are pretty good looking lines anyway. But I could go back with my ruler if I was motivated to do it and bold these lines. And I might do it anyway, simply because I'm thinking it might be a good idea. So this one was a little bit skinny right there, so I need to go ahead and clean that out a little bit so I can make it match its partner over here. Just talking about symmetry just a moment ago. Okay, well, not too bad. Now, in the case of this, it was very small circles, so unless you've got a pattern maker for that, most of the time you have to freehand smaller circles. But in this case, these circles on here, the lugs on this larger tire, could be larger, and so we can go to our compass right here, and we might have been able to use maybe this very, very smallest circle. It's still a little large, but over here we could probably go to maybe this middle-sized one, or even just the smallest one. It is slightly larger than these, and that would give us a pretty good circle. Now, if we're going to do that, we need to put a dot everywhere we want this to happen at. And then we're just going to take our pattern that we have here and put the circle right over top of it. And I've kind of changed my mind. I'm going to that slightly larger circle. They all need to be the same. So see, we simply put it over top of that dot, the little pattern, center it up, hold it down, and then use it like a pattern. Same thing here again. We're going to hold it over top of the dot that we made, center it up, and then use it as a pattern. And then one more time, we can do this bit. We can hold it right down so it's dead in the middle, like a target almost. And then we're going to... Now a lot of people will go back and actually make turn this dot into kind of a decorative part of the bolts that hold the tire on there. So I've seen that done a bunch of times too. So it really just the first time a kid just said, well, the dot was already there and it was easier to pronounce it than it was to erase it. And I said, all right, well, that child is thinking. So there we go. So that will look pretty good. And this car is looking pretty good. I will bold my lines, and then I'm going to move on to the next portion of this. And so we spent some time setting it up, and now that we've got it, essentially the drawing portion of it is on the verge of being done. We've got to clean up the work we did, and because we were able to very accurately reproduce what we see on here over here, that's what this grid system is all about. And so it looks like it was a success, at least in this case. And so we will now leave the grids in the background. That's part of the attractive appeal of this particular project, I've been told by numerous people. So we're going to have it setting. It's going to look like a white car when we get this done before we start the coloring phase. It parked in front of a checkerboarded background. That's the goal here, at least. Okay, let's see what we got. Looks pretty good. I think I might even take my pattern back over here again and give it a good tracing again, just to bold those lines up. Make sure it's right where it needs to be. I don't want to throw myself a fried egg here. Okay, very good. Now, the basic car has been drawn, and now it's simply our task to go back and we're going to start erasing the grid lines and erasing the numbers. Now, I'm going to start with the easy stuff. That's my goal most of the time. So I'm going to start by erasing the numbers and the letters. You got to be very careful not to erase the drawing that we've just spent days making. I have to redraw it. And so that's it for the numbers right there. And then I'm going to continue this by taking out my notes on my 10-inch by 16-inch piece of paper that we, if you recall, way back when we started this project earlier in the week, previous sessions, seemed like we would never get this far, I'm sure, but we have. And that's just simply through persistence. Okay, I'm going to dust that. It's already starting to look like a drawing now. Now I'm holding my paper down too, because sometimes the paper will move when you're attempting to do some aggressive erasing, and it's easy to tear the paper up if you're not careful. So you just got to erase with some determination, but also be smart enough to hold the paper down, support the paper while you're doing this, harsh erasing. And some of it will require some really aggressive work to get. If you were drawing with a heavy touch, it will take some aggressive work to get these markings out of here. And so you've just got to be, my advice is to always draw with a light touch. You can always make it darker. Making it, lightening it up when it was really drawn with a heavy hand is difficult enough to do. Okay, and then lastly, don't get in a rush just because we've got stuff to erase. Okay, very good. Alright, I'm going to say that looks pretty good. I don't see I don't see too much of my markings coming through, and I did have to draw pretty boldly. in order to make it visible on the projection screen. So now here's where the hard part begins. I have to start erasing out my grid lines. Now your grid lines are drawn in regular drawing pencil. My grid lines, on the other hand, have been drawn in with a colored pencil so I could do this demonstration. So I am going to have to just go about erasing it carefully. Now we have to be careful about erasing this so that we don't erase part of the whole picture that we just spent days drawing. So I've got some smaller erasers that I use for things like this, and you may not have these erasers, and so that's just too bad for you. But you can acquire these erasers at a business supply stores, and they really make doing some of this very detailed work like this in tight areas a lot easier. And it is possible to erase colored pencil, but as you can see, it's not easily done, and you've got to, the best I might be able to do is just lighten it up. So I'm only erasing the lines that touch the car. I'm leaving the lines in the background, and we will use those as our negative space and behind our automobile, and we will have a very attractive piece of work when we're done with that. Okay, now, so this is kind of that part of doing the art project that is tedious and takes a little while to take care of, and you've got to be real careful. If you're not, you end up just destroying the work that you spend all these days making. And so it's important just to be patient, and kind of, you know, part of the journey of getting to some place is the ride there. So, you know, people are so anxious to get to some place, like finish a piece of artwork, that they forget about the experience of making it. And so it's times like this that you get a chance to reflect on that as you're kind of cleaning it up and getting it ready for the next step. Okay, let's see. That's not too bad there. Sometimes I may have to go back and retouch it. However, since I am trying to erase a colored pencil, I think that came out pretty well erased. So I'm just going to continue working my way across some of the larger areas here, and I'll switch over to a bigger eraser that will allow me to work a little bit faster than the detail eraser does, especially. Now I've noticed that when I erase things, if I erase right down the line, straight down the line that I'm attempting to erase, it comes out a lot easier. When you try to go back and forth across it, it just makes it more difficult for some reason or another. So if you are going to erase, you know, you've just got to be really, really careful with what you're doing. And if you are lucky enough to have one of these objects, which is called an eraser shield, it can help you a great deal. It keeps you from erasing parts of your drawing that you don't want to erase, and it allows you to erase the parts that you do want to erase. For instance, if I want to erase that red line, I take my eraser shield and I cover up everything with it that I don't want to erase, and I can hold it down and I can erase right in there very aggressively, and I don't have to worry too much about erasing the good stuff. So people who are draftsmen, and it's people who draw a lot and do drawings for a living, have a whole bunch of these little tools like this that they've collected over years to help them make better drawings. Now you got to be careful though sometimes, because you get really aggressive with these things, and next thing you know you erase a hole right through your paper, right? And that's not any good either. Alright, so see, it cleans up pretty good, even though it is a colored pencil. So you may not be having this kind of trouble erasing your work, and I'm hoping not. Now see, in these really tight little areas right here, and that's where it helps to have this small eraser. Now you can also use a cap eraser, can sometimes help you in these tighter areas like this, but a lot of times you'll erase something and you simply will just have to go back and touch it up. That happens when you make drawings. It's part of the indescribable quality that makes drawing such an interesting experience. Alright, that's also looking pretty good, the old guy says here. So, eraser shields, big pink erasers. The big pink eraser is one of the greatest erasers there is, I think. So, I prefer to use them in my classes. They're durable. You can cut them down into little chunks that are, you know, student friendly. They're inexpensive. They really erase really well, to be honest. So the pink eraser is one of those things I hope isn't going away before too long. And it's just barely, it's very durable, and it's got just a tiny little bit of gritty material in it that causes it to be able to chew out some of these more persistent lines that don't like to come out. This one right here in particular doesn't want to come up. I might have to get the eraser shield out and really go to town on this one. And it's I'll have to figure out how to go over top of it, and that's alright too. Alright, so I'm making some progress here, and I'm just going to continue doing this until I run out of either class time today, and sometimes it takes almost a whole class period to do these things. So you just got to be patient, and we're being patient, and that's how you make art work. Being patient, long attention span, continuous focus, persistence. These are the things that cause it to work. I may have to sharpen up my pencil, my eraser pencil there. Okay, because it looks like I'm going to have to put it to work right in here. I'm going to retouch this a bit. So, keep erasing. That's all there is to it. And when we get that cleaned up, we can start some decorations. I'm thinking some flames would be attractive on this car. I'm thinking maybe some performance products, such as a hood scoop on the front of it, maybe some decorations of sorts, numbers, and perhaps even stripes might be attractive. So it should be just a beautiful piece of work when we're done with it. Now I have to keep kind of going back, and I am cleaning this up. I'm lightening it. I'll probably never be able to get the red lines completely out, and that's been a problem all throughout this particular project, and we've done it numerous times. And on mine. Now on the students' work, it should be easily cleaned up because you all are using regular pencils. For the purposes of this demonstration, I thought it was important to be able to see precisely where I was working at when I was explaining parts of the drawing to the students. And so that's why I am having these red lines to deal with right now. But I'm making excellent progress in cleaning them up, and in only a short period of time we'll be ready to move on. So this is one of those please stand by moments, right? Alright. I think this little line right there looks like it could be handled harshly. Let's get it get out my friendly eraser shield. Looks like that's the place to be. And drawing paper, which is what I'm working on, is very, very durable, and it can be erased really aggressively, and it doesn't tear, or you don't chew a hole through it. And so it's good to use, you know, a better quality paper if you can acquire it. Other types of paper make good drawings, but they, if you have to fix them or somehow do any aggressive erasing on them, they would just fall apart with a little bit of stress. Okay, let's see. We're making pretty good progress here. So I may just continue to use my eraser shield for some of these larger lines, so I can just aggressively clean that out. So if we were in the physical classroom, as we've been calling it, this would be a much different looking class, and I would be going around and correcting people's artwork during this period of time, and helping them work on their decorations. But there are some decorations that will be required on this, and then after that it's a kind of a, you know, be creative kind of a setup after that, and then we will start to color it after that. And there are requirements for the colors too, and you may be discovering that that's the way it is for pretty much everything here at Warner's visual art program, is that it's got a great deal of planning has gone into creating it, and that plan is adhered to most of the time. Let's see what we got here. See if we can get this out of here, or at least it lightened it up enough so that when we want to color it, when I get ready to color it, it can be colored over, and there will probably be very small indication that there was ever even a mark there. Okay, so let's clean this up and dust it. That's looking pretty good. So as you can see, it gives you more of that three-dimensional effect when the car is very kind of white right now against that checkerboarded background. It makes it look much more visually interesting, and like it pops out from its background quite a bit. So I'm going to continue on with my erasing right here of my lines using my eraser shield. So I'm going to erase any of the good stuff that we've taken so long to create. There we go. So I'm simply just trying to lighten my lines right now so that I can you know, just get a good view of the car itself, and it's starting to look pretty good here. Let's maybe get that line out of there, or just hit it so that it lightens up a bit and camouflages itself in there. So let's get this taken care of right there. Maybe try this one up in here again. And just lighten it up as we go along. And so you can, it's always a series of going back and fixing up certain parts of the drawing, and then going back and retouching it a bit. But this is just part of making artwork, is that most artists are constantly messing with their project in order to get it to do what they think they want it to do. Okay, let's go ahead and this line right here with the eraser shield. Now if you don't have an eraser shield, well, I guess that's just too bad. But you should probably have one. If you're going to draw much, these kinds of tools are really, really helpful. Now, when I was a child, a computer had not even been created yet. And so, this is how all drawings were made. So this is, I guess, old school. We don't use, we didn't even know what a computer was at the time when we first saw our first computer. We didn't know what it did, and to be honest, it really didn't do very much. It just kind of sat there and used electricity, the best we could figure. Okay, now look, this line right here, pretty good. I don't have to erase the tire if I tilt my eraser shield a little bit, and so I can aggressively erase. It seems like the whole class period is just erasing, and sometimes that happens. And as much as I have to work to get this colored pencil to come off, some kids have to work 10 times that hard just to get the regular pencil to come up, because they draw with such a heavy touch. Okay, so that's starting to come together up in there. Let's try this line over in here and lighten it up a bit. Let's see, do I have a short part to my... There is a short part to my eraser shield right here. I don't want to erase my part of the car I already did, so get in there and scrub it aggressively. Okay, and maybe back up a little bit, because there's another piece right there I want to get out. Alright, so this will lighten up these red lines enough so that when I decide to start my decoration portion of this, which is going to be soon, we can drive on, drive on, and it won't have any long-standing negative effects. but you will still be able to see my grid lines, which may be actually a little bit helpful. Okay, what else we got to do here? It looks like everything back here in the back portion of the car. I may go back to this and get this again with my eraser shield one more time, because I'm a little bit not real thrilled about the way that came out. Yeah. Drew that red line in there a little bit too aggressively, I suppose. Okay, now back in here. So this is a job for the long portion of the eraser shield, and I might be able to use this right here to make it happen. I can feel it biting into the paper, but I don't want to chew a hole right through the paper. But it is doing the job, and I can see it lightening up. So it's a good thing that you all didn't have to do the only part of this. Now, I have had students before draw their paper with red lines on it because they thought they didn't do it on here, and they did it on here instead by accident. And so we've had to fix up a few over the years. Let's continue here. Let's see, I'll go this way with this particular line, and I can get my corner of my eraser in there real well. So these tools that you get, just like if you were a mechanic or a construction worker, you'd have some tools of your own. These tools make your job much easier and keep you from having to do a great deal of redrawing of other parts of your drawing. Now this right here is a little short line, and that's a little bit of a problem. Maybe I can use my short line right there, and it looks like that will actually work. Okay, so and it does look like it's going to work for me. Okay, we're almost there. Alright, so we're almost there. So I'm lightening all this up, and it's coming up pretty good, considering the fact, excuse me for coughing, considering the fact that it's drawn in colored pencil. Alright, let's move on here. This, a lot of this, let's see if we can use the cap eraser to lighten some of this up a bit. This cap eraser is kind of a soft eraser. We're going to use something where erasing colored pencil's got a little more grit to it. But it does kind of work a little bit of the material up off the paper gently. So sometimes you just got to experiment with these things. So if you're to this point and you are keeping up with the instruction, especially if you're working at the pace that I've been working, you're doing a tremendous job. And that is a credit. I mean, you should give yourself good work habits grades. If you're not keeping up with this, but you're doing your best, well, then that's a different story. Then you should give yourself good work habits, but you should also account for the fact that you're falling behind in the production rate. And that's where I think the second thing in our daily work habits that we only do once a week, you may have noticed. But those work habits grades are the production rate. Is, are you keeping up with the instruction? Are you keeping up with the projects? Or are you hopelessly falling behind at every step of the way? If that's you, we've got to work with you. We've got to get you fixed up to where you can keep up. Okay, I think we can probably scrub this out of here pretty easily, or lighten it up enough to where it can be colored over. Feel pretty confident. Then I think that's about as good as my particular drawing is going to get. And if you've got yours cleaned up to this point, well, that's outstanding. And if you don't, you just got to keep working on it. Sometimes it can take a while just to even get to the part where the good part. But I think we've made good progress on this project over the few sessions that we've been involved in it. So in this case, I have to say that this is so far one of the more successful 6th grade drawing projects that I've had to conduct. And in this case, I would also say that this is unusual that we're not in the physical classroom, and so because of that, anything that we do is almost an experiment. But then again, some things just don't change that much, and I am attempting to reproduce here on our virtual lesson in the e-classroom, as they like to call it, pretty much the same experience that you would have if you were in the classroom, the actual art room at Warner Middle School. Okay, I'm going to look at my project and see if there's anything I think I can do to make it lighten up my lines anymore, and I really just don't see how I would be able to do that. This one really jumps out and makes me want to attack it, but it's probably not going to lighten up much more, and I have got a plan for that anyway, so it's all good. So here we are now. We've drawn almost everything on here, virtually almost exactly the way we saw it onto here. Look at this, I forgot that one little part right there, way up there on the windshield, one of the very first things we drew. So it's come along, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way it looks. So now I can start doing some decorative touches to it. I can start maybe thinking about doing some creativity parts of it, and that's always a good part of this lesson, is seeing what it is that the students come up with as far as putting things onto their automobile. Now, I will also say some of these things I want you to do because it's a drawing exercise, but it's also your own personal artwork, and I understand that. And so there will be plenty of room for creative freedom here. But there's also requirements, and shape drawing and tone drawing and line drawing, all that kind of drawing that we did in our notes is what we will continue to do even right here. So one of the things that the students are always asking me to do is to draw flames. And I can show you how to do that, and you should at least attempt it. And I'm going to draw flames in about 3 different areas on my car. And usually you see the flames come from areas where there's 2 portions of the car's body come together, okay? A seam, as we call it. So this would be a good one right here. So I think flames are nothing more than lazy S's like this, and then kind of reverse lazy C's depending on which direction the flame is going, right? So that would be kind of your typical stylized flame that you would see on an automobile. Now I'm going to go back around this and put a little outline around it, simply because I think that looks really cool. And I must have seen that somewhere before. It might have been a student that came up with it instead of something I saw at a car show. But if you're a car enthusiast, or you have somebody in your family who is, you'll know what I'm talking about here. So this is pretty interesting piece of work right there. And if I were to put more flames on it, I guess I'd come from here and maybe behind the door. So this is a good place right here at the lower portion of this. Well, you know what? I'm going to put some pipes or something on there. I'm going to skip that part for right now. I'm going to put some flames coming out from behind my door, I think. And so just lazy S's. And you cut it back and you don't think about it too much. If you think about it too much, it won't come out looking like flames. It'll come out looking like lobster claws or some such thing as that. Okay. So I like that too. So it matches its friend up there. I'm going to just go around and try to do my outlining carefully. Ooh, this will be tough in here. See if we can make it work. There's just a micro space in between there. Boy, that bell went off, made me almost mess up my drawing. Well, what that means is we're out of time for today, but we've done a great deal here. I think I will also just continue on with one more decorative touch here, and that would be I think a hood scoop is in order here, so it's kind of just like a tilted line like that. We're just going to draw this straight down like that. If we were looking inside of the hood scoop, if we were to look around the corner, you can see it's got a hole in it, and all that air when you're driving it goes into that hood scoop. Okay, so we've finished up several sessions here. On the next session, we'll probably just finish up our decorations here, and then you'll be free to do some decorations of your own. And then in sessions after that, we're simply going to start coloring it, and that will be the rest of the project. So we've made a great deal of progress here in just a few times together, and so that was very good and very productive. So thank you for your attention. I'll talk to you soon.